Welcome to Blueprint for Health and Healing, Reversing Disease from its Foundation. Hi, I'm Dr. John Clark, and our topic today is how can I apply healthy principles in my daily life? I put together this lecture as people were often asking for a protocol, a schedule, a plan, a menu, and then it sort of dawned on me, if we could put together a menu or a lifestyle that would fix most diseases, we'd be ahead of the game. I mean, it's a little bit like being a mechanic, where if you service the car properly and you keep up with the scheduled maintenance, the thing goes well. And you treat it right and it'll last. But if you have no clue how to do that, then you're going to run into problems. Inadvertently, something's going to get left unattended to, and you're going to have failures. And so in this particular presentation, we hope to cover all the issues that people face by giving them a plan to make sure they don't end up hitting those issues. It's like if I have a plan and a scheduled maintenance, then I don't have to do repair and fix-up beside the road when I fall apart. And so a lot of people are just doing things that are going to leave them falling, by the side of the road with mechanical issues, if we use the car illustration. And where would I find information like this? How would I come up with information that would help somebody to recover? Well, who made the body? Well, God did. And so who would have the best plan? Well, He would. And so we want to look at what His suggested repair is, or schedule is, or maintenance requirements. And that way we can stay ahead of the game. And so a question I ask is, have you noticed the hand of God in your life today? Here's an important text, Acts 17, 25 and 28. He giveth to all life and breath and all things, for in Him we live and move and have our being, as certain also of your poets have said. For we are also His offspring. And so we want to make sure that we realize that He made us, He sustains us, He gives us every breath of air. And if we realize that, then we can look to Him for direction. He says, if thou diligently hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, and do that which is right in His sight, and will give ear to His commandments and keep all His statutes, a lot of which were health statutes, I will put none of these diseases upon thee, which I have brought upon the Egyptians. Then He says, for I am the Lord that healeth thee. So we want to look to Him. We want to look at His statutes, His health rules, His health ideas, and put as many into practice as we can. This will be based on science. It'll be based on good physiology, based on anything we can glean from the statutes in the Bible. And so a little philosophy to start with. Disease is an effort of nature to free the system from conditions that result from a violation of the laws of health. For example, in arthritis, that means that arthritis isn't a deficiency of Motrin or naproxen, ibuprofen. It came about because we broke a law. And so if we can keep from breaking those laws, that's what we're going to try to help you do in this talk, then we can keep from problems. Reading on, in case of sickness, the cause should be ascertained. It's good to know why you got sick. You got to know what law you might have broke. That way you can, if the reason your car isn't running well is you forgot to change oil, it'd be nice to know that it was the oil change omission that caused the problem. In case of sickness, the cause should be ascertained and healthful conditions should be changed and wrong habits corrected. It just makes sense, right? I'm in the habit of driving my car 50,000 miles before changing oil. Let's change that habit. Okay? Then nature is to be assisted in her effort to expel impurities. Might need to do a cleanup. And to reestablish right conditions in the system. So really this talk is about reestablishing right conditions in the system. And I'll just tell you up front, sometimes somebody will come to me with the crazy diagnosis. A lot of doctors are out there coming up with new diagnoses, creating new diagnoses, just imagining new diagnoses, coming up with drugs for new diagnoses. And I mean, everybody's got a new diagnosis that nobody's ever cured before, nobody's ever treated before, nobody's ever really fixed before. And so what do? Well, I found we put them on this program, and regardless of their fancy diagnosis, we can often get them fixed, and it's just a matter of we got the maintenance back up to date. And there's a lot of things that go wrong when you don't keep the maintenance up to date. So let's start with one aspect of that maintenance. Since I call this lifestyle choices schedule, you can be sure we're talking, time course. And so here's the idea behind the schedule. Nature runs on schedule. Soybeans run on schedule. A bunch of scientists took and went out to a field of soybeans. When they went out to their field of soybeans, they took a very bright light and they shined it on the soybeans at 3 a.m. when it was totally pitch black outside. When they did that, the soybeans turned their leaves up to catch the light, thinking it was the sun. Well, for the next week, the scientists came out at 3 a.m. to look at their soybeans. And every morning at 3 a.m. for a whole week, the soybeans turned their leaves up right on time. Soybeans run on a clock, so do we. We call it circadian rhythms. We call it chronobiology. When we pick a certain thing like meals, we call it chrononutrition. And when people stick with a very specific schedule, then they get good results. We'll go into why as we go along here. You see, these circadian rhythms are always going on in your body. And it just so happens that there's more than one clock in your body, more than one circadian rhythm happening all the time. And so sometimes they get out of sync. For example, for rheumatoid arthritis, the clock telling the melatonin when to rise gets out of sync with the clock telling the cortisol when to rise. And this is a large cause of, the inflammation and so forth in those conditions. And so our bodies run on a clock. There's an anti-inflammatory clock that we have to keep in balance. We have to get it timed. How do I set my timepiece? How do I, on my watch I have some buttons here. I can set it. How do I set my clock inside of me? Well, you have to do it by being very consistent with major circadian rhythm setting events in your life, such as meal times. And so you can, they say, entrain. This is sort of a concept of making clocks get on time by external forces. Entrain your clocks by keeping your meal times at the exact same time every day. If these scientists went out to their patch of soybeans and every day they shined the light on them at a different time, they just totally confuse the soybeans. And that's what happens when you eat at different times every day. One day it's at, 1 o'clock for lunch. Next day it's 2 o'clock. Following day, it just, you get the idea. And so the other thing that entrains or sets your internal clocks is when you go to bed and when you get up. And again, if you're always at the same time, it's just like with the soybeans. If you have, one at the same time, then they'll be on time. But if you're always at a different time, it's like confusing to the system, and you get more inflammation. And inflammation is the basis of most diseases, by the way. And so we want to entrain the clock. And things that will mess up the clock, maybe your meals are on time every day, but you snack between meals. This will set the clock to the wrong time. This will make the clock so it doesn't work right. This will confuse the clock. It says, what is this? Why is this here? There's nothing supposed to happen at this time of day. And then for the next week, it looks for something at that time of day, perhaps. And snacking increases insulin resistance, obesity, and diabetes. Now, also what messes up your clock is a big meal in the evening. Its digestion is unpredictable. It messes with your sleep. It essentially makes it so your bedtime and training of the clock is canceled. And so, besides, you tend to gain more weight with what food you eat in the evening. So as people keep their schedule and time, we find a lot of health things improve. They consume fewer calories, so they don't gain weight, they don't become obese. They have better insulin sensitivity, so they're less likely to have diabetes. They have lower cholesterols, so it decreases heart disease. They burn more fat during the day, so they maintain a good metabolism. And but if they're eating between meals, it actually affects the brain quite dramatically, because the brain's where the clocks are. And so people who eat between meals end up with more Alzheimer's. Much better to be on time with your meals and no snacking. And people that eat late in the evening, they tend to have more cancer growth. Really, the 2-meal-a-day program is best for cancer growth. Compared to 2 meals a day, colon cancer risk rises 70% for 3 meals. It has to do with what they usually eat in that third meal. And 90% for 4 meals. Each additional snack time increases the risk of cancer another 60%. And that evening meal is really problematic. And it's like a little bit like shining the light at the wrong time on the soybeans. And people who eat that evening meal, they definitely have higher cholesterols. So how close should I be on my schedule? I say you should treat your schedule like an airport schedule. You know those planes, if they are on schedule, they take off at a certain time, they land at a certain time. And if you miss one, you missed it. And so in training your clock and setting your circadian rhythm, if you miss your mealtime by much, it's better to skip than to change its time. I mean, a skip meal won't hurt you. In fact, there's a lot of benefits as part of perhaps what we call caloric restriction or chronobiology or intermittent fasting. And studies show that skipping meals once in a while or even for a day have good effects for the immune system, good effects for weight management. And so we will like to keep the schedule very clean and no irregularities. And a skip meal isn't as much of an irregularity as a displaced or rescheduled meal, rescheduled at a funny time. All right, so Alzheimer's risk rises when your melatonin falls. Other things that you can do to mess up your schedule is to, go out in the middle of a field in the middle of the night and put on a bright light. And that would mess up the soybeans, so that'll mess you up. And so people who go shopping at night, people who have computers and TVs on at night, people who are watching their cell phones at night, when they're getting light in their eyes, especially the blue light associated with these devices, they change their clocks. They mess their clocks up. It really affects especially their melatonin. And so having very regular eating times, very regular meal times, and very regular low light times. An easy way to figure that would be to sort of follow the clues from the sun. Sun's going down, start turning the lights down. And especially switching from blue light to red light. You can buy light bulbs that actually can be programmed to run blue in the day and red at night. I thought that was interesting. Somebody's capitalizing on this fact. And in those sleeping hours, if you can get your schedule tight and pick a good time to put on your schedule, the best time would be going to bed no later than 9:30. We say 2 hours of sleep before midnight is worth 4 hours after midnight. And so if you can do this regularly, this is perfect. And then getting 7.5 to 8 hours. And people with insomnia do better to not eat an evening meal and always pick an exact bedtime, and then sort of stick with staying in bed for the full 8 hours until their clock gets entrained. So they can do this. So what I'm building you up to here is you want a good schedule. But what would be a good schedule for everything? And that's what we're doing here in this topic. We're going to look at things to schedule and when to schedule them, how to schedule them, why we're scheduling them there. And I figure schedule is the best way to try to get in everything that's important to good health. And so Ecclesiastes 3:1, to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven. So let's see what we can do to establish those. So I'm going to just start with the top of the schedule, covering up the bottom. We'll take it line by line. And I put on this schedule that it would be good to get up at 5 a.m. That's the time I picked on the schedule. If you go to my website, Northern Lights Health Education, and pull down the article associated with this with the same title, How Do I Practice Healthy Principles in My Daily Life, then there'll be a schedule you can fill out. You can write in your own. It's blank. And there's what's suggested one. I mean, it's the schedule basically. And but why do I pick 5 a.m.? Well, it sort of depends on when you went to bed. And so I'm suggesting going to bed at 9. And so you get your 8 hours of sleep. And this is a 9 to 5 arrangement. And so it is vain for you to rise up early and to sit up late to eat the bread of sorrows, for so he giveth his beloved sleep. Nice promise, huh? And recommendation. And so we're going to bed early and getting up early. And some people say, well, I'm a late, a late person. That happens by habit. You know, it isn't the most physiologically advantageous schedule. There's nothing that says some people have better health with a late schedule. It's just something that you've allowed to slip into your life. So we'll just start with this as our framework. If your work schedule won't fit this, then you change your times to fit. The most important thing is to be the same every day, every night. And to, even if your schedule may not be ideal, just sticking with one exact schedule all the time, 7 days a week, it produces better health. In fact, they looked at teenagers, they took them and they watched them over a school period. They discovered that the teenagers who kept a different schedule on the weekend, in other words, they slept in on the weekend days, had poorer health. It was messing with their circadian rhythms, their chronobiology. And so it's very good it's very helpful, it's very beneficial to keep the same schedule all the time. So pick one you like on the weekends maybe for the weekdays. Anyway, all right, so I have people get up in the morning and take a cool sponge bath. This is very awakening. It's like better than coffee. And when I discovered this, both in research and started doing it myself, I found, wow, I'm wide awake. Other times I'd get up and sort of get out of bed and I'm going slow today and do my reading, and I'm certainly not getting a lot out of this. But when you do this, you're wide awake. It wakens up your nerves. You're thinking, cold, I can't stand cold. Well, it doesn't have to be cold, just cool. And Proverbs 20 verse 4, the sluggard will not plow by reason of the cold. I grew up on a farm, and sometimes we were left plowing when it was getting very cold outside, and we'd complain, and my dad would quote that quote to us. Therefore shall he beg and harvest and have nothing. You got to work when the work is there, right? So anyway, we're talking about cool shower or sponge bath, and you're scrubbing your skin. It opens the pores. You're scrubbing your skin. It's making it so that your nerves start to go, and you're scrubbing your skin. It helps getting the blood flowing. And so this is a good wake-up thing. The next thing is you've been all night without water, I assume. And so you want to make sure you start off the day with a full tank. It's like taking a trip in your car, and if you want to just keep going, you better have the tank full. And water is sort of like your elixir of life. And so you want to have plenty of water on board. Isaiah 44:12, he drinketh no water and is faint. Yeah, so you want to have plenty, and so I suggest 32 ounces or a liter of warm water in the morning and adding a little lemon to it too. It gives it good flavor, it gets your colon cleansing, it also helps your liver enzymes to get started with that lemon. There's a lot of benefits to this, and really I put this schedule together for people who are trying to recover their health. And so I try to maximize a lot of details, and you know, everything, this is just good recommendations. Don't think that if you don't do it, you know, you're in trouble. But I'm just trying to give you the best overall picture of what would be the best tune-up. The super tune, so your car will be a race car kind of thing, yeah. And so water in the morning, and then the next thing is to take an outdoor walk. This gets your circulation going. Usually in the morning when you go outdoors, there's a little bit more moisture in the air, mist or dew or even rain, and this gives the air a specific, special advantage for you, which is negative ions. It also is more pure. Oftentimes there's more oxygen, as the trees overnight might have been making some oxygen, and a lot less cars running around perhaps, so putting particulate matter in the air. Anyway, a morning walk is key, and it'll help you to keep on keeping on. I will walk before the Lord in the land of the living, says Psalms. And so keep in the land of the living by walking, eh? Now, 5, you can have your personal devotional time. You know, is that part of a healthy schedule? Why is that a part of a healthy schedule? Because we just read earlier that your Maker gives you every breath of air. So nice to get in touch with Him and just say, I kind of like that air. Keep it coming. And then I often have people gratitude journal, listing 10 things for which you're thankful. In this series, we have a topic of gratitude that you can look up to see all the benefits. It's huge. Anyway, gratitude journaling, have a notebook, write down 10 things every day. And then there's in the morning, so if somebody's trying to recover health, I usually like to give them a herbal tea, taken 30 minutes before the meal. So we're working our way up to here to breakfast. So you know, you can just you know, extrapolate that if I'm giving you a 6:30 a.m. tea time, then and it's 30 minutes before a meal, we're going to have a 7 o'clock breakfast. And so maybe you're not sick and you just want to have good health. What's a good tea? How about red clover tea? High in minerals, high in antioxidants, high in cancer-preventing phytochemicals. That would be a good one. Otherwise, pick your favorite herbal tea. Not green tea, not black tea. Those aren't, yeah, those have lots of fluoride and caffeine and other things, tannins that aren't good for you. I'm talking genuine healthy teas, like, I mean, just peppermint tea is good, chamomile tea. And, you know, if you're like, oh, I'm not into tea, well, then just, you know, don't worry about it. But if you want something that might help, herbs are said to be for the service of man in Psalms 104, meaning they're to help you with your health and your life, and God puts them there. So then let's talk about breakfast. We're going to start off, there's 3 lines here to breakfast, and the first line is all about fresh fruit. Now, I like fresh fruit. I had a lot of fresh fruit for breakfast this morning. And let's see, what did I have? I had some mango and some peach and some grapes and some blueberries, and yeah. And so fresh fruit is high in antioxidants. Fresh fruit is high in phytochemicals, vitamins. I mean, every bit of it is just loaded with good things for you. And the less processed it is, usually the more nutrition it has. And it's interesting that God said that's what He wanted us to eat largely here in Genesis 1:29. And so I say get 65 to 70% of your breakfast as fresh fruit. And a lot of people don't think of fruit as the mainstay of their meals for whatever reason. they think of potatoes and beans and grains and, you know, heavy things like that. And maybe they like something heavy, holding their stomach down. And, you know, I'm not saying there's stuff wrong with those things, but if you want the most vitality, this will give you more. We were on the, you know, lecture trail a few years ago, and we started doing stuff on pandemics and long before the last big pandemic, and we realized that the more fresh stuff we ate, the better it would be, and people listening to our lecture kind of concluded that too. I mean, I was just presenting the science. And so one family said, we're going to go 100% raw. Well, or at least 80%. And they did. And a few years later we came back and saw them, and they were telling us about it, and we said, wow, how can you do that every day? And they said, it's easy. They said, how's it easy? See, we had traveled with a vegan chef, and they did cooking schools, and man, they could make anything out of raw stuff, but it took all day. We're like, there's no way we're taking all day to do this. And so my wife went over to visit them to see what they were doing. And they were eating, like in the morning, they just make a big bowl of fruit salad, and might have 20% cooked, like bread or cornbread or granola or waffles or whatever. And but they largely ate the fresh fruit. And then for lunch they make a big vegetable salad and maybe have beans with it, or potatoes, or, you know, rice or whatever, or all three, and but maximize on the salad. And my wife went over to visit them, and here was the 2-year-old asking for a second bowl of salad, and we're like, wow, this is amazing. And they said, yeah, we feel so much better on it. We don't have any intention to stop. And my wife said, it's too easy. You know, this vegan chef made it look like a lifetime endeavor to produce, you know, spaghetti out of zucchini, or, you know, all kinds of funny things. But here, all they do is just throw everything together in a big bowl, chopped up a bit, and they've got their salad, and it's done. And my wife says, let's try it. So we went on to it, and boy, my wife says she never had so much energy in her life. I mean, all that, they sort of call it live food. And if you look at it under a microscope, you take a fresh carrot and you slice it and look at it under a microscope, everything's moving in it. Everything, it is alive. And so it's good food, it's got good nutrition, it's fresh, it's still, you know, got all the bioavailable vitamins and so forth. And so make sure you eat lots of fresh fruit. The next thing is nuts and seeds. Why nuts and seeds? That's for your fat-soluble vitamins, and also there's a lot more minerals in these things. They are seeds. The plant tends to put its most effort into putting good nutrients into its babies, or, you know, its seeds. And so nuts are just that kind of thing. And so I think that you know, 10 to 15% at most of the meal could be nuts. A serving, perhaps. You know, a serving is usually 3.5 ounces, and this is for your magnesium, for your zinc, for your vitamin A, D, E. Well, you can't get D, but A, E, and K. Then 20% cooked. But why cook stuff? If all you eat is raw stuff, it's usually cold, and if it's cold, your body has to warm it up. And if your body has to warm it up, it takes a lot of energy. And if you're always putting energy into your food, it gets to be a real drag on you. But if you eat something warm, then your body can, you know, benefit from that warmth. It doesn't have to create that warmth itself, and it can stimulate your stomach to have better blood flow. And also, there's some things you just can't eat raw or shouldn't eat raw. I mean, there's a lot of these raw foodists that break all kinds of rules of good health because they want to be totally academic about making sure everything they ate was raw. They dry things, they, sprout some things. I mean, sprouts aren't bad, but sometimes they're hard to attend to and keep fresh. So eating some cooked stuff, you shouldn't probably eat raw. You definitely shouldn't eat raw grains. Sweet potatoes and white potatoes, you know, there's a lot of discussion on those, whether or not you should eat them raw. Cooking them, in my estimation, makes some of the nutrients more available. Cooking carrots makes a lot of nutrients more available than eating them raw. And so make sure that, you know, a little warm food certainly it goes a long way with a good breakfast. But notice it's not a huge portion. Now here I have supplements. I put it on the list here because I think that if you eat the supplements between meals, it's sort of like a snack. I mean, your stomach treats it like a snack. Your stomach doesn't say, okay, let me see your papers. Are you a supplement or are you a snack? No, it just takes it like a snack. And so it's really eating between meals. So I say eat them right at the end of your meal, whatever supplements. And again, I'm not real big on them. There's very few that I ever prescribe unless somebody has a glaring deficiency that can't be addressed immediately and effectively and timely with a good food. Otherwise, I help them pick a good food to achieve that. And so common supplements that I might have people take should there be a deficiency might be B12, vitamin D, maybe zinc, selenium, or iodine. But otherwise, I'm pretty sparing about adding in laboratory concoctions into people's good diet. Then immediately after the meal, you need a digestive walk. A digestive walk that helps you because it makes sure the blood doesn't just stagnate at the stomach. It makes sure that your blood doesn't just end up not going to your brain. It makes sure that as you walk, you are jogging or massaging your stomach. You keep it well agitated, if you please. And it also makes sure that your blood sugars don't go too high. Exercise is what helps your body to use the sugar more effectively, more timely. A lot of people, especially going diabetic, have this trouble of high blood sugars in the morning when they get up. We just gave you a walk in the morning. And after meals. And so exercise at these times is key to making sure you don't end up with high blood sugars. Then, good thing to think about as you're going through your day is stress management. I put that in here because when I've worked with patients, a lot of them are stressed. In fact, when I talk to them, when I do an intake, when I do their initial evaluation, I'm always asking, what is the major stressor in your life? And there's very few people that say they have none, except for the people who are causing everybody else stress. Yeah, there's usually some stressor, and a lot of times the disease is hooked to the stressor. Here I have a couple texts. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee, because he trusteth in thee. And so if we can find our trust in God, if we can keep our mind stayed on Him, if we realize that, He's giving us every breath of air, He might as well give us a good day too. And what is a good day? Is a good day where there's absolutely no problems? Or is a good day when every problem doesn't seem that bad because He's managing it? I mean, any day without God could be stressful. And so the last text down there, Philippians 2:5, let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus. He depended on His Father. He said of Himself He could do nothing. If He could do nothing, what's that say for me? And so I should realize that and let Him, manage my life and help me know what to do next and make sure it's Him in charge. Now, I put on this next line, routine hydration. Yeah, I put it on the schedule. I put it 2 hours after breakfast because you don't want it to get into your breakfast and dilute your digestive juices and stop the digestive process. You want to make sure that you also finish drinking so that you're not still drinking within a half hour of your next meal. And I often have people put a teaspoon of charcoal in their mid-morning water just as a detox. And some people ask, well, won't that take the vitamins out of my body? Actually not. Studies of dialysis patients whose blood is dialyzed against charcoal found that they actually did better than those dialyzed against, reverse osmosis water. And also animal studies where they take and they're feeding animals and watching them regularly. If they had 3% of their meal as charcoal, 2 to 3%, which is quite a lot actually. They do much better. Cows have better meat, give better milk, pigs grow faster, rats live 40% longer, chickens lay better eggs. And so yeah, you can take charcoal every day. You won't, for some reason that stuff knows what to absorb and what not to, or something anyway. It's quite amazing. And so and what will it pull out of your body? It pulls out inflammation, it pulls out heavy metals, it pulls out organic toxins. And so it coats ulcers and helps them heal. It does all kinds of good things, and it's an amazing product. And what we're talking about here is activated charcoal powder. If at this point you're not doing a whole lot, you're not on a regular schedule, you're not working for somebody else, taking a walk at this time is healthy too. We call it interval training. People who do this regularly have better health. They are more likely to stay mobile for many years to come. And so walking is good. Now, at 1 o'clock we have another herbal tea. I usually have people taking a herbal tea, drink it twice a day, especially if we're trying to treat something. So, you know, suppose you have rheumatoid arthritis, we might be having you take gotcha cola tea twice a day. Let's suppose that you have cancer, we might be having you take Artemisia annua or Pardiarco or something like that twice a day. Suppose you get the idea. And so there's a list of herbs with a lot of our talks, or if you go and pull down the handout off our website, you'll see the herbs that are beneficial for these different diseases. And those are good things to drink at this time. Otherwise, if you're not sick and you don't care for tea, you drank your morning, red clover tea, you don't have to do one here, but or maybe you want to just go to the place where they sell lots of herbal teas and find one you like. I like ginger, fresh ginger. Another good one for just anything is turmeric. That's sort of a relative of ginger. And next thing is lunch. And notice I put on here 65 to 70% fresh vegetables or savory fruit. What's the difference? Well, you don't want to mix fruits and vegetables. Mixing fruits and vegetables gives your brain a hit. Mixing fruits and vegetables can make your digestion worse. Mixing fruits and vegetables can give you different microbiome in your belly that isn't helpful. There's a lot of disadvantages to mixing certain classes of foods. And so I say decide whether your lunch is going to be vegetables or savory fruit. What's the savory fruit? This would be like the fruits that a lot of people like to mix with vegetables, such as tomatoes with onions and garlic. This would be like peppers in your salad. This would be like cucumbers. So we make the salad out of avocados, peppers, cucumbers, olives, zucchini, whatever. And pick those fruits. How do you know if it's a fruit? If it has a seed. Does an avocado have a seed? Yeah. Does a broccoli have a seed? Well, not yet. Well, broccoli is really a flower, and so it's going to be a vegetable. Vegetables are the root, like a carrot, a stem, like a celery, a leaf, like a spinach, or a flower, like a cauliflower or broccoli or artichoke. And so you want to keep those separate, and fresh is good. I mean, but some vegetables just aren't very good, unsteamed. So we steam broccoli, we steam a few things. But a lot of them can be eaten fresh without too much trouble. I mean, I've been eating a bit of broccoli salad over the last few days. That is good. And the key is a good dressing in my estimation. So if you go to our website and go to the recipe section, you'll find some dressings that are very good. My wife's favorite one is the citrus garlic dressing. You're thinking, wait a minute, you just told us not to mix fruits and vegetables. Well, sometimes we mix these citrus juices with especially dressings, and unlike putting a whole fruit, it tends to go well. And that said, you can kind of reason cost effect. If the stuff kills your stomach, stop using it. Figure that's not for you. Everybody's a little bit different. A lot of these principles, though, cover a large percentage of the population, so they're good guidelines, but you might have a difference. Some people can't eat beans, some people can. And you have to decide which category you are in. Again, lunch we have nuts and seeds for your good nutrients, and they can be made into the dressing. You see in on our section on recipes that a lot of the dressings are nuts and seeds blended up with like lemon juice and herbs, a herb of your choice or herb suggested for certain things. And then we have our 20% cooked again. And so we want to make sure that our meal is complete with some good warm food again, cooked food, and yeah, something warm, but also a lot of these things, you know, there's some things that just aren't real great raw, and this could be vegetables to steam, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, that kind of thing, or it could be some of the heavy root vegetables that are pretty hard to digest if you don't soften them up with some good steaming, you know, beets, potatoes, yams, and that kind of thing. So good cooked stuff, but only 20%. So I said at most, because whereas it's you know, there's value in these things, but when you cook them, they just aren't as nutrient dense. And especially if we're trying to overcome some disease, we are maximizing our nutrition. The next thing is an after lunch outdoor walk, your digestive walk. And same reason as after breakfast. And then mid-afternoon, another 32 ounces or 1 liter of water. And you don't have to put anything with this one. I sort of prescribe lemon in the first water of the day, charcoal in the second water, and then this one you choose. If you liked either one of the other things, you can do it. You can just drink straight water if you want. Doesn't have to be cold, doesn't have to be hot. Better not to be cold. Cool is good. People drinking cool water tend to drink more water than those drinking warm water. But the warm water absorbs faster. That's why I gave you warm in the morning. So that's put on my schedule at 4 o'clock. And then I tend to have people do their water treatments in the evening if they have a certain disease. So if you had like knee arthritis, we'd be doing hot and cold treatments to the knees as described in the lecture in this series or the presentation in this series on arthritis. It would be a time to, you know, attend to health issues that need extra attention and extra time. And then I put on here, as we pointed out at the beginning, a bedtime at 9 p.m. 9 p.m. Why 9 p.m.? Well, definitely to have better melatonin. 9 p.m. because if you go to bed much later than that, you're shifting your chronobiology more to a late type, and this has a lot of downsides. And if you're going to bed later, you're often having lights on later, and the later you have lights on, the less melatonin you're going to get. In fact, people going to bed at 11 have very little melatonin that comes on at its usual time in the early morning, and it's unpredictable of its timing and its amount, whereas people going to bed at 9 have a positive, solid surge of melatonin at exact same time every morning. Just that much difference really affects the melatonin and whether or not you have inflammation as a result of poor melatonin. So we pick a good bedtime really in deference to melatonin and to getting a valuable, better sleep, better quality of sleep before midnight. And then I often send people to bed with a charcoal poultice. If it's cancer, it's over the cancer. If it's arthritis, it's over the sore joint. There's a lot of things that need the inflammation pulled out of them. A kidney failure will put charcoal poultices over the kidneys at night. Liver failure will put a charcoal poultice over the liver at night. Type 1 diabetes, trying to treat the pancreas, will put you get the idea. We pick the organ, we put this charcoal poultice. It's to pull inflammation out. It's also, it's sort of, you know, the thing is bulky. It helps keep that organ warm. Warm tends to draw blood, tends to improve the circulation as well. But you'll see in the individual lectures or articles on our website when and where and how and why charcoal poultices are beneficial. We have a video under Zoom topics on charcoal, a couple of them. All right, so the last line there, a look in the disease-specific presentations in this series for recommendations on specifics on certain lines in this chart this schedule. Now, I put up here a cooperative effort. We want to do what God says, and we do it because He asks us to. You think of Naaman, a man in the Bible who had leprosy, and he was asked to do something a little unusual, at least in his mind and perhaps in the minds of everybody else, and that was to go dip in the muddy river 7 times. But when he did it in faith and knew that God was asking him to, God stepped in and did a miracle. Would everybody that went down the river have that same result? No, but it was something God asked him to do. So if God asks us to diligently hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God and do that which is right in His eyes and keep all His commandments and His statutes, then, well, it's a little like Him asking us to go dip in the river 7 times and I'll heal you. That's basically what He says. You do this and I'll put none of these diseases upon thee which I brought upon the Egyptians. And so we ask to be kept from the pestilence that walketh in darkness, that is stalking with such power through the world. We are then to cooperate with God, observing the laws of life and health. That's important, huh? Having done all that we possibly can, we are to keep asking in faith for health and strength. We're to eat that food which will preserve the health of the body. Now, we have all this information in a book that you can download from our website, or you can order one if you like a hard copy. And our website is Northern Lights Health Education. If you go under presentation handouts, as seen on that button over there on the left-hand column, you'll find this article individual as well. And in that article, it'll have two schedules, one that's already filled out and one for you to fill out. And then you can review all the reasons why, as it's all in there. It's this whole lecture in article form. Well, this has been, how can I apply healthy principles in my daily life? And this has been another episode of Blueprint for Health and Healing, Reversing Disease from its Foundation.